So a few words about me. Currently, I'm working at Text, previously Live Chat as a head of product, but because before that I was working at DeepL as a senior product manager. Then in the Polish market, I was working at Alokai, previously view storefront Infermedica, but also I'm occasionally doing some advising, or also I'm co-founded this community growth meetup from Wrocław. It's crypto advertisement, I'm sorry. But if you'd like to learn, see more meetups like this, I really encourage you to join, to follow us, because we're cooking something interesting. First context. When this framework will be useful for you. So it was built on the, first of all, you need the traffic. Not only traffic, but users. So ideally, you should have at least 1,000 new users every month. Minimum is 500. By new users, I do not mean visitors, but actually a user that starts using your product, sign up. So that's the minimum. Otherwise, you will most likely you will not have enough data to proceed. Also, it was built on the products that are having this product-led growth business model. Either it's product-led sales or let's self-service, but you need this component of selling through product. It doesn't matter if it's freemium or trial. If you are working in sales-led companies where you are mostly selling through sales and convincing user through sales, it might not be that useful, but some components might be also useful, especially in the post-sales product adoption, which usually is very problematic when you are selling through the sales. Moving forward, I'm going to talk about activation. Why not onboarding? Because onboarding usually is connected with these very few steps at the beginning, like the checklist, like the video showing you most basic features, but it's not the whole process. So activation is the whole process from new user signing up to the moment where he realized the value and use product constantly. The better term that can be used also is the framework called continuous onboarding. And what is activation? Activation is the bridge between the marketing bringing new users and the product delivering this value. And why activation matter? First of all, it's one of the most impactful area of retention. So if you ever work on retention, if you already have a product market fit, retention is probably one of the hardest metric to move. And that's because it's really hard to increase the frequency of the usage. Like if someone have a specific frequency of when he needs the product, that's the frequency he's gonna stay with. But activation can really impact that, as mostly the way you activate brand new users, they will stay or stay not with your product for a longer time. That's why it will impact it. Also, it's probably the most impactful area when you want to improve your free to paid conversion. And last but not least, it will also reduce the churn due to inactivity, so a specific type of churn, just because inactivity usually coming from the fact that user did not establish a habit of using your product. The whole framework, it's 10 steps, but you can basically break it down into 4 phases. So phase 1 is about defining the key moments in user journey for the user when they can realize the value, then correlate this with conversion and retention. Then you should find the gaps in the whole process, and last but not least, build hypotheses on how you can improve the whole experience. And the fundamental framework I was using to build the whole thing is this setup moment, aha moment, and habit moment approach, where you have 3 key moments in any user journey. So first setup moment is the moment when user performs all of the actions necessary to experience core value proposition. Example, if you are a host at Airbnb, you want to become a host at Airbnb, before you can experience the value when the new people are renting your house and paying you the money, you have to not only create the account, but also create the whole listing, add all of the photos. And this is all of the necessary steps that you have to take before the value is even given to you. So there is a lot of motivation involved. The second step is the user experience, the call value proposition. From the data perspective, you usually see that people are reaching this moment when reaching that moment shows increase in the retention or conversion. And example, I completed the first ride at Uber or had this visitor at my Airbnb apartment. Last but not least, it's when user regularly uses your product. So think about doom scrolling on TikTok or any social media. That's the best case, but also the worst case of establishing the habit. Remember, this is only a tool. The way you use it, it's up to you and your product and its ethics. Moving forward, where to start the whole thing? You always need to start from the middle, so from the aha moment. And why is that? That's because all of the other moments are really dependent on it. So first of all, the setup moment is actually all the necessary steps to reach that specific aha moment. So if you think about the complex B2B environment, there can be multiple use cases you're serving. So different features might have different aha moments, and they might have a different path towards it. And habit moment, like everything with building a habit, it's about doing same thing multiple times. So that's about theory. Let's get to the actual work. Step one, what you should do is get in the shoes of your user and map the whole user journey. If your product is quite linear, like the example of Duolingo, it's quite simple. Basically what you do, you create a new account and do the screenshot or in any other way, track every micro step, every decision, every loading screen that user is experiencing, and create the whole journey. If you have like multiple use cases, multiple paths that can be done within the product, you should monitor each of them. So visualize each of them. It might be some work, but it's doable. That's gonna be the base for everything that we'll be working on from now on. The second step, as you have the whole journey, you more or less understand what is the value that you are providing. But you might not be sure. So what you should do, you should get the candidates for this aha moment, potentially the most important moments when the user realizes the value. And it's even in the case something that simple like Duolingo might not be that simple. By the way, every data that you will see here is the actual real data from the products I was working. It just anonymized. And I used Duolingo just because it was a similar area. That's why I can say with confidence that it's not that easy to say if the first aha moment is when you answer the first question correctly. Is it a first lesson that you answer correctly? Or considering how important the strike is and whole gamification in Duolingo, is it a number of strikes that you should do? Fun fact, there was recently a podcast on Lenny with the retention product manager from Duolingo that said that strikes is actually the second most important feature in the whole Duolingo at all, and the most after lessons, and the most important in terms of increasing retention. So it's more important than lesson itself. How you compete with your friends is really something that matters for people. Example of the B2B from the type form. Is it the first question created, the aha moment? Is this the first published form? Or do you actually experience the value where you get the first response from the user? So especially in B2B, the aha moment can be really far away from the beginning, and it can take some time to get there. That's why the path might be really non-obvious. So that's the 2 steps. That was the easy part. Let's get into working with the data. So you have all of these key moments, those candidates, and you want to build something like this. Basically, you want to take every action that you've took. On the left side, you see all of the users. You are looking if what happened if user done that action at least 1 time, at least 2 times, at least 3 times, and so on. And basically, you do that for every action. And about the columns, what are those? Let me explain one by one. So first of all, you're taking users from the closed time frame, for example, 3 months or something like this, and you look at all users that have entered your product during this time frame. What's important, for example, if you have a free trial, like say 2 weeks, you need to have this the end of the time frame before, so everyone have a chance to like go through the full trial. So you shouldn't take like users newer than 2 weeks, etc. Then the second column is about users that from this whole cohort, users that triggered that action 1 time, 2 time, 3 time, etc. And what's the basically a connection of both. What percentage of whole population did that action 1 time, 2 time, 3 time, etc. And that's first part. The second part is about converting to paid. So how many of the users who performed the action converted to paying user? Keep in mind that your baseline is always whole population. So as a baseline, you're also looking what was the total population of people that converted to paid. Then you have the conversion of the cohort. And last but not least, what percent of buyers is doing that action? And that's really important for the reason that will be explained in a second. So basically, you have this. And as you can see already, we have event 1 and event 2. And pretty quickly, we can spot that if we want users to convert better, there's really strong impact if they do specific action at least once. So we have almost double the conversion, and almost all buyers are doing that. But also we have like 50% only of the whole population people doing that action, which already shows a gap for the optimization, while event 2, no matter how often it's done, it basically doesn't impact the conversion. But that's the easy case. In the streamline and linear product, it's gonna be more tricky in a second. But that's the first part. So correlation with conversion to paid user. How about retention? You do exactly the same thing. You take every event and see if on, for example, entry day, during first session, user did that action 1 time, 2 times or more, how many of them retain to you on day 1, on day 2, or on day 7. So you already see that there is, the more actions you do, there's a higher retention. What's really interesting that there is always a point where it's flattened. So doing at least 2 actions will give you 10% points of higher conversion, while you also don't need to over-optimize for that action. Okay, so this is the base how you prepare the data. But now how to read it. And there will be a bit more examples later. So no worries, there's only data here. Retention is quite easy. Either there is an impact or there is no impact. For each event, you can look at this and see which user action, going back to those candidates for aha moment, really matter. And this is from the B2C case, B2C product. We have quite some data to really see where is the impact, where isn't. But it's become really interesting when you are working on the B2B more complex product. So let's say we have this. So we see, by the way, B2B, why you need a lot of users? Example before, we had more than 30K of users, and that was from the time frame of like 3 months. While in the B2B, to get at least 12,000, so 1/3 of what we had before, we had to take users from the whole year to really understand if there is an impact or not. That's why you need, for this framework to work, enough users. So like in here, you can see that if someone do at least 2 of these actions, there's a huge conversion increase, but also the fact that there's also almost no conversion change with 1 action, and there's almost everyone that is doing that, you can think that, okay, probably this action is triggered by default for every user. That's simple case. Then we have different event number 2, and we see that almost every user, paying user is doing that, but not everyone from the whole cohort is doing that. What does that mean? Probably the fact that every buyer does it, either it's default action or triggered by default for these users. And it's becoming more complicated the more data you have, and sometimes these numbers become chaotic and it's hard to read. So there is some people doing that, there is some impact on conversion, but some buyers do it, doesn't matter or not. And it can be even more problematic when it just doesn't make sense. So for that case, we need a cheat sheet on how to read results. So once you do the whole analysis, you will see what's the level of conversions, retention, etc. What you have to do, you have to create a sizing. Basically, sizing for impact, coverage, and distribution. So first of all, you want to define what does high impact here as a conversion to paid mean, what is medium, what is low. What's the coverage is what % of buyers do that, and distribution, what population use it. Basically, distribution means how well do you market this feature to the user. And the numbers that you put here, it's not universal. You need to look at the data and find what does high mean to you comparing to other results. With that, we are becoming more complicated, but maybe no. It should make your life easier, so give me a moment. Basically, it actually creates not 9, but 27 groups, but you don't care about all of them. You only care about those actions of user that have high impact. If impact is low, your goal is to optimize your activation process, your onboarding. So if impact is medium or low, it doesn't matter for you because you don't want to optimize towards it. I mean, it can be important in terms of like what not to show, what to get rid of, but that's secondary. Then based on the which group some action is, then it have a different roles, how to think about them in terms of onboarding, and then it means different roles means different action, what you should take about these specific features. Actually, there's only 5 groups, but that was the base. There are gonna be some examples here. So first, if you have something that have a high impact on conversion, there's a lot of buyers that are doing that and a lot of people just seeing that action. It's probably some of the core features of your product. Example from Duolingo, it can be finishing the lesson, it can be finishing the strike. Basically, the role of these metrics is they have an impact, so what you should do is to maintain the high exposure and motivate users to do these actions even further. Then we have low-hanging fruits, means something that definitely impact your conversion. Almost all buyers do that, but not every user sees that. Means there is mediocre or low distribution. You don't market this feature enough, and actively increasing their exposure will lead users to perform them during onboarding. And by the way, every example that I take here is very similar to the features that was in the product that I was working on. So example here from Miro board is inviting collaborators. So inviting them is not a core feature. It's whiteboarding, working with other people, brainstorming. But without these people that you can work with, it makes no value to you or limited value. That's why this might really help you. Then we have an actions that are secondary but important. So the role of this is that it's frequently performed actions that can support conversion but are not crucial. That's why they are secondary, but still we want them to be important. So it's either support or educational activities that help people understand your product. What you should do about them is maintain their high exposure. So a lot of people do them. That's why you should keep them where they are. But make sure they don't cannibalize the key features. Example of that is if you're using Calendly, the key reason to buy Calendly is to schedule easier your calls. But one of the problems that you might have is that people are not showing. That's why, for example, a feature of workflows where you can send an emails, like very customized emails before your meeting, will help you to make sure that people attend your meetings. And that's my case from 2 days ago that I haven't done that, and I was ghosted by the interview participant. So yeah, make sure they don't cannibalize. They're not more important than scheduling, but they're quite important. Then we have high impact. Some of buyers do that quite a lot, but not everyone. Means that they are most likely serving specific use cases, and there might be niche or I don't want to say this word because my tongue will break. But basically what you should do is to iteratively amplify their exposure and see if it's helping or not. Because you can't be sure at this point, you should test this. That's why you should do it iteratively. And what's really important, as it might be serving use cases, you should analyze your results by segment, by specific user segments. Example of that is actually in Asana. Asana will give you value out of the box. But, for example, if you're planning your marketing campaign or your releases, product releases, if you integrate this with Google Calendar, you will have everything in your calendar. So integrations might be this kind of supportive or important for some use cases. For example, it might be more important for manager than the user and user like developer, etc., or marketeer. Then we have the last group, something that have high impact but low coverage. Means not many buyers are doing that, but when they are doing that, it's really important for them. It's very niche use cases, and your action should be actually known. What you should do, you should reactively work on them. If there's any issue with them, they are still important, but do not over-focus on them. Don't take any active actions, only support them reactively. Example here might be exporting your PDF, your Notion page to PDF, to HTML, to whatever else. It's not important for most of the users. Other example can be exporting users for further use. Okay, that was for step number 4. Only 6 more to go, but it's gonna be much easier from now. So you have analyzed everything. So we already know what is your key moments, what is the potential aha, not potential, what are your aha moments? There can be a thing that there are 2 or 3 of them because of multiple use cases that you're serving, but you already have the specific moment in your product when the value is realized. So you need to define the setup moment. As you know where you want to guide your user, you already mapped everything, every steps before. What you should do, you should create a funnel. So as you look at every micro step, now you should look how many people are moving from one screen to another until they reach their goal. That will actually show you where you have gaps in your activation process, where people are churning, and how we're gonna fix this, that's a second. But basically, this is the key moment that will show you where you have problems. And the habit moment on when do you build this long-term relation with your user. Basically, you will do the same thing, but you take this only event that really matters for you, the specific user action, put a limited time on it. It was the B2C app. We only looked at day zero activity because if users have not done an action during first visit, we lost them. So in our case, we looked if they done that 2 times, 3 times, etc. How does it impact month 1 retention, month 2, month 3? Basically, with the B2B product, you most likely will look at the first 3 days, first 7 days, and see how people behave if they done that action at least once a day, at least 2 times a day, at least 3 times during this week, etc. And you can also combine the actions like event 1 with event 2. That sometimes matter, depends on your product. Now, quantitative data give you the answer where is the problem. But if you rely on this to solve the problem, you might be solving the wrong problem. That's why you need to combine it with the qualitative data. So do any kind of qualitative data. The best obviously are interviews, but depends on your problem. It might be card sorting, it might be surveys, and many tests that you can think of. That will give you, after you talk to people, list of the problems. And basically, in terms of activation and adopting some features, there are 3 categories of problem that users can occur. And the fact that one is bigger than another, that's because usually that's the biggest bucket where most of the problem is. What does they mean? So first of all, discoverability issue. Users are not aware of the feature at all, that it exists. So you don't really need to rebuild too much. You need to point the users in the right direction, something that Asia was talking about. So that's one thing. The second thing is, I know about the feature, but I don't understand the value. And I had this problem a lot, that what I wanted people to do, they saw that it was about downloading the apps or integrations, but they didn't see why they should do that. Why should I care about your app if I can use your product in browser? So it's mostly about how we communicate the value, if there is a value, of course. And last but not least, I know about the feature and understand its value, but I can't use it. It might be physical problem in your product that the path is broken, but it also might be because of, I don't know, errors with the payments, etc. Basically, it's some kind of physical problem. Or example of the integration. If you are working in industry, you probably know how code works, and with the guide, you should be able to implement Google Analytics code on your website. But if you have never touched any type of code, don't understand websites, how to implement code might be way too much for you. And this is also a conversion conversion issue. Now, you have your problems. What you should do is start building hypotheses on how to solve this problem. And I really recommend this growth opportunity solution tree approach. Basically, as you have groups of the problems, you break them down into smaller pieces, like thinking from the first principle, what is the issue there, underlying issue there, and solve and build hypotheses on how to solve them. Examples about the apps that I mentioned, we had discoverability issue. One of the problems was that people was not aware that apps exist, and we broken down it into current naming doesn't reflect the whole ecosystem. When we said apps, we didn't mean mobile apps, but we mean mobile apps, desktop apps, browser extensions, integrations, and everything else. So naming wasn't there. But it can also mean that apps are invisible on the start page because of the banner blinding and limited entry points on the website to this specific area where we wanted to guide people. And last step is to just start testing. What I can recommend when you're thinking about approaching experimentation, try to make the most aggressive test to confirm your hypothesis. Because otherwise, you are risking of losing time and resources on something that might not give you an answer. If your test will not be strong enough to confirm the hypothesis, you might be running that for a few weeks or even a few months, and your results will be, it has some impact, but we are not sure. Does it statistically, is it statistically confident result? Not necessary, and you just lost a few months. And testing is just the tool for making better decisions, not a guiding thing. That's it from me. Thank you very much. If you're interested in presentation, just let me know through LinkedIn.
I'm happy to start with questions. Could you be so kind and give me an example of the most aggressive, how you call it? The most
aggressive test.
Yes, please give me some example. Help me to understand it.
Okay, I recall it was already gone from YouTube, but the experimentation team from Airbnb was having a problem. They knew that if end users are logged into your website, they are having much higher retention. So their goal was to make more people create an account and log in, not just casually browsing without login. And this was their hypothesis coming from the data. And they started with the pop-up that was prompting to create an account. But what was the most aggressive part? It was about the timing. So at the beginning, they started showing that every fifth visit, every two, and they realized at some point that we are not having enough confirmation, we're losing our resources. So what they decided to do, they were showing you the pop-up every second page. So if you're browsing through Airbnb, every second page that reloads was showing you the pop-up. It's extremely irritating, but they have confirmed that really quickly, and obviously they were tracking the trade-off, so they were aware what's the trade-off of being so irritated, and then they iterated from there on finding the perfect timing, for perfect copy, etc. But at first they started with really aggressive hypothesis and interrupted the flow of user very mindfully.
Thank you. That's truly aggressive way. Thank you.
Thanks for the presentation. During your metrics, I think there was something like what is the association between how many users clicking some button X times comparing to what they achieved in the application, what they did later on, and so on. So I'm wondering, is it the metrics that is compared towards some kind of a time span, or is it just the total within the lifetime of their account? I think that was one of the first slides.
So I recall the example. Basically, we're looking if they done that during the trial. So we have first 14 days, because we have 14-day trial, and that was the time frame in which we're looking at when they done that action. But basically, you can even start without it. Like you are looking for the whole lifespan, just because you will limit it in the next step when you are analyzing habit moment. And first thing that mattered is comparison users that done the action versus have not done the action. So It might be in any moment during their journey.
Yeah, but I think that...
This one?
Yeah, I think so. My concern is that users that are on the application for a long time, obviously they will have much more clicks even by accident, right? So maybe there is a place where some kind of a weight mechanism will be welcomed, right? Because obviously the users that registered 1 week ago, they didn't play around with the application enough, maybe, or maybe even compare it to the time they spent on the application and so on, to have some much more accurate data and not just raw clicks or events. So I'm wondering if there is a room for improvement in this case.
You're right, but you're wrong. And let me explain why. That, what you just suggested, will give you much more accurate numbers. And when I was starting with this, this is based on my advising roles, those numbers. But when I was starting building that, I was working at DeepL with data scientists who done exactly that. Basically, what that means is that this is already quite complex framework that takes a lot of time. And you are over-engineering when you don't need most accurate numbers here. What you are looking for is 80 to 90% of accuracy. That's all of the matter, because this is not the tool that making decision. You are making decision. It should guide you in the right direction, and that's why you have then qualitative data to put on top of that, and that's why you are testing. So if you would go for the most accurate numbers, and I did that mistake. I've spent almost whole quarter with data scientists trying to add weights, use algorithms on that, and we absolutely over-engineered that, and we lost much too much time when your goal is not to do the perfect analysis. It's just a tool for you to optimizing the whole flow. The faster you start testing some optimizations, the better impact you will have, and it's better to do it in 1 month than in 3 months with the perfect numbers, because perfect numbers will not give you the perfect hypothesis and the perfect test and outcome. I haven't actually tell the full story here, because I've mentioned that it's mostly about messaging, but no, it's about the value, and value breaks down into things. How you deliver the value, if there is a value, and second, how you deliver the value, so the messaging. And this research, actually, when I first started it took 3 months, I told you, but it gave us work for the next 9 months, because not only us, but also other teams that I shared the result with.
Okay, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen,
Thank you.
Wiktor Sobolak.